problem? Why is he...
He wants to be important. What is the problem? People want to be important. We also thought that...
money. I want a two-shot to begin with.
Yeah. Miron, there's a very moving story that you tell in your book about the day that Israeli troops retook this area and the wall and how you told your father about it. Please tell me what happened.
Well, what happened is that people didn't know because they kept the fact that the old city is occupied until the evening. So he didn't know it. When I came, I said, I've been there in the morning. He didn't believe. So I took him the next day, and he came and he met here, the Sephardi chief rabbi. And I was standing here, and I remember I'm standing awestruck, just without moving. And then I felt what is the meaning of being part of a chain of generation, unending, like joining hands. And being an atheist, I mean, was the real religious experience.
How about your father? What was his reaction?
What was כשראית פעם ראשונה את הכותל אחרי 67, מה היה ההתרשמות שלך?
ההתרשמות הייתה גדולה, מפני ששנים רבות לא...
אני מבקש בלי אישור, אתה לא יכול לסיים.
אתה מפריע כרגע לצלם.
אני כן מפריע, אני מבקש ממך בלי...
אז ההתרגשות הייתה גדולה בזה שלא ראינו את זה שנים אחדות, והיינו רואים את זה מבחוץ, במרחק באחת הערים מסביב לירושלים, ואחר כך מקום שהיינו רגילים כל פעם להגיע, ובייחוד בליל תשעה באב, שאז היו באים המונים, ואז חזרנו עוד פעם לאותו מצב שהיה אז.
He says that for him it's again the thing that he couldn't visit this place for 19 years. And especially what he missed in the 19 years was the 9th day of Ab, the day that we commemorate the destruction of the temple, that he used to come here every year. And I remember my own visit here just in 1947, 20 years earlier, coming with my youth group here. There was an alley 5 meters wide, a wall here, and all this area was all filled with Arab houses. And there were British troops around us. And they're all waiting for someone to sound the shofar, which is the end of the fast, because this is forbidden, was forbidden under the laws that regulated this place. And lo and behold, it happened, and then an army squad jumped on the crowded alley and arrested the people, and we walked home singing nationalist songs. That is my last memory of that.
You didn't see it again for 20 years?
For 19 years.
כמה שנים זה היה?
19.
19 שנה, כן.
Explain to us, certainly I know that many people know this, but as an Israeli, explain to me why the morning that you came in with the paratroopers and saw this wall in 1967, why was that such an emotional experience? What is it about this that is so important to you?
Well, this is probably the holiest place for Judaism. And this is just the retaining wall of thing that is behind that. Because what behind and above us is the temple. And those stones are the only remains of the second temple and the first temple, which is maybe the only holy place for Jews, because the only place you stand in the presence of godliness is on the Temple Mount. Everything else is just, synagogue is only to commemorate that, is when that was destroyed. So even for people who are not religious and who are atheists, this is a national and religious symbol. And in fact, you cannot separate nationalism from religiosity in Jewish religion.
What about for the Arabs? In the days after the Six-Day War, this was a very profound experience for the Israelis. What about for the Arabs? What happened to them?
What happened to them is at first they couldn't believe that is what happened to them. And that is why for about 2 months they were shocked and therefore were inactive. But then after 2 months they found out that the Jews are not that terrible and nothing is going to happen to them. So they started to express their own views about it. That is what...
But this area changed very quickly, right? How did it change? I mean, this looks a lot different now than it did then.
Oh, yeah, of course. As I said before, the area was only 5 meters wide. And when we came here, the problem was that people knew that hundreds of thousands will come the moment the area will be open. And then it was destroyed. The whole area was destroyed. About 110 homes. And that plaza been created.
So it was really just sort of like a narrow alley.
Yes. It was a narrow alley.
מה אתה מספר לו?
שהיה פה רק 5 מטר רוחב וזהו. אוקיי?
Yeah, one more thing. As you put it in your book, the news hadn't even been broadcast yet. You went to get your father. If you just go through that for me again, okay?
About
When you got your father and brought him here.
Okay.
And as vividly as you can, tell me.
Right.
Okay.
He's doing
How bad is that, Peter?
he's doing it on purpose.
Here, Rich, put it out.
Yeah.
הוא הספיק הכל, והוא יצא.
Well, no, I will start. עוד נתחיל עוד פעם.
מה יתחיל?
Okay.
Anyway, so nobody knew.
Nobody knew. Nobody believed that it's possible. It was like a miracle, because people didn't know that we are already in that place, and it was announced only at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I myself couldn't believe it. I came here, I touched the stones, and I left. And only when I heard the announcement on the radio, I realized, and I started weeping. So for me, although I've been here, it took me 7 or 8 hours to understand. And then I decided I have to share it with my father. So I went and I told him.
כדאי לספר להם.
And then he came with the chief rabbi here and stood here, and we felt that this is how we join with our ancestors, just joining hands with our ancestors.
Really a triumphant moment.
Not triumphant. No, I don't think it was a triumphant moment. I think it was deliverance. That was the high point of a feeling that the threat of annihilation prior to Six-Day War is by divine deliverance evaded.
Good. Very good.
כדאי לספר להם
אוקיי.
החוויה הגדולה ביותר.
Movie version of your book.
Right. In fact, I have one version of it in Norwegian. They did a story of 30 minutes.
Okay. One of the most interesting stories, I think, in your book about the state of Arab-Israeli relations following the Six-Day War is about the monument that was put up there, and I'm going to wait until this young fellow walks by you, which he's going to do now. Yeah, okay, fine, he's gone. Now tell me what happened, the controversy about this monument.
1 year after the end of the hostilities in '67, Jewish warriors decided to erect memorials on the Arab side to commemorate the battles. And then the Arabs also decided to commemorate their own. And then there was a question whether or not it should be allowed. And I thought it should be allowed. So instead of the temporary memorials, I negotiated with the Muslims, the Arabs, on the erection of a permanent memorial. and that is what you see behind me, put up by the Higher Muslim Council. It was a secret. I mean, there was no reason to tell it about it. And then one day the Jewish public knew that this is what's going to happen. And then there was a big cry of anguish. How can you allow to build a memorial for the murders of our sons? What would be... No, you can't do that.
Go closer, Peter, if you like.
Okay, let's try it again. So there was a huge controversy.
Yeah. So there was a huge controversy. People say, how can one allow to build a memorial to the murders of sons? And then other people said, would it be possible to erect a memorial for the German pilots who fell over London in the Blitz in the midst of Hyde Park? And my opinion was that by unifying the city, we have recognized that there are two communities here, and that we should give that community also communal rights equal to ours. If they want to commemorate their dead who fell defending what they thought is their cause, there is no reason, especially because they're dead.
Well, but considering then the other side of the coin, the fact that there was such a hue and cry about it, did that tell you something about the two communities coexisting here?
Of course, for me, I learned a lesson that a twilight war of incommunal strife is a place where you must keep the hues in stark contrast. You cannot allow people... No, it's so good. All right, let's start again.
What did it... It clearly showed something about the state of the society. What was that?
It showed what one should expect. That if you feel that you are still in the midst of a war for survival, you cannot grant the enemy a human face. You must dehumanize him. Why? Because if you make him a human being, then when you shoot him, you become a murderer. So what is intrinsic to a war situation is the fact that you depersonify the other side. And this is what happened here.
Has that changed at all in the last 20 years?
I don't think so. I think that both sides still perceive themselves as being in the midst of a war of survival. That is why they must depersonify. The enemy is perceived as a mass of faceless humanity, and everything goes back to its own tribe. And the cleavage is in the heart of the city.
Great. Terrific.